Welcome back, listeners, to the BizBlend podcast where business meets soul, strategy meets substance. I'm your host, Sana, and today we are diving into the new era of business. Not the glossy, repackaged fixes we see in corporate culture, but a conversation that questions the entire system itself. And listeners, joining us is Jessica Martin. She's a visionary human strategist who has guided leaders across multiple sectors like finance, healthcare, aerospace, and education. With a rare ability to blend neuroscience with ancient wisdom, Jessica helps people and organizations shed outdated frameworks and reclaim integrity, wholeness, and purpose. So, from burnout to boardrooms, from chronic illness to conscious leadership, Jessica's journey is a proof that strategy isn't just data driven, it is deeply human. So, if you have ever felt like the corporate solutions are not just cutting it anymore, this one's for you. So, with that, Jessica, welcome to the show, and it is such an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
Lovely, lovely, Jessica. Okay, so let's address the elephant immediately. So you have said that the corporate fixes they aren't working and they won't. So can you walk us through what kind of fixes are right now prevailing and how we got to this point in business culture? I mean, what's fundamentally broken here?
Yeah, it actually started several years ago. And so I'll take you kind of back there about how we got here and then bring you kind of into this current state. But when you look generationally and globally, the dynamic well over a decade ago started changing and
Mm-hmm.
companies started asking themselves, why? How? What do we do? And they went with what had always been working, which was get the employees to conform. And but at the time, there was a new type of employee coming into the market. They had grown up in this advanced technology. They had grown up with being free to express themselves, not necessarily always conforming. A lot of the idols in society at the time were showing that conforming wasn't winning. So they came into the work environment with completely different skills than in American culture, what was normal. So then when I started looking at the global culture, every country was also going through these shifts. And what happened is there really was no solution. They really went into this place of like, well, we'll get them to conform. I remember sitting in this boardroom and these board members were like, what are we going to do? And we were kind of all like, I had people from all the regions and these board members together, and we were discussing Simon Sinek's why, right? And we were like, why are they picking this career? Why are they in trying to figure out how to get quality employees? And I remembered thinking, you're completely missing the boat. And so eventually I ended up saying, the challenge you're having is these people have been raised different. So the way you were raised for generations is now not how these people have been raised. So they're not used to just sitting and doing the task and getting the thing done. And then at the same time, we have technology that is saying we can't have them just sit there. And then you come forward into now where we've got AI in the workforce, we have
Yeah.
multiple generations and right. And we've got a global market. So you're now not only dealing with these generational changes of these adults who are very adept to technology, you have the older generations who are adapting. And then you also have a global market that culturally they all see work differently. So when you come into the culture now with
Mm,
that paradigm, it's
mm,
very difficult to shift with the scale and size that companies are now and the freedom to be able to start your own business, to start your your podcast. You have so much more freedom now. So
yeah.
how do you get these people? excited to come in and click buttons when they know potentially they could get replaced. And then you have this toxic environment where we've gone from a fear based leadership to a kindness based leadership, but you still need to have productivity and you still need to have profit. So when you look at this and you look at current surveys, about 90% of executives and employees believe that culture is important. What's interesting is executives believe strategy is more important than
Mm,
core values and beliefs.
mm,
And core values and beliefs is where it lays. And I say that because people want to be a part of companies that are doing good, that have the same values as them, who believe in them, not just the product. And they want to feel valued because employees, their paradigm, and these are just based off of surveys, right? That I have from Deloitte, Gallup, what have you. But employees believe that feeling valued is their happiness and that it's because it ties back to their core values,
mm,
appreciating the company's core values. So when you have this prior experience where it's productivity and profit, but the way to motivate your people is through core values and them feeling seen and valued, the disconnect lies there. So in our current market, and this is what gets me so heated, in our current market across corporations, the solution is always boiling back to, well, we need to change our culture. What do we do? So they create all these evergreen courses. Everyone go take this course. You have a month, right? Or a year, whatever it is, right? You got to go through this course. Well, it's failing. They still actually don't have the numbers on it, and I'm expecting the research to come out very soon, and we will see an implosion of a
mm,
transformative experience for corporations and employees. But the reality is they've skirted around it in all these different places, yet by creating evergreen education models where people just sit in front of their computer, watch videos, read curriculum, and you're done, that doesn't work. You're laughing, you know what I'm talking about.
I know.
So with that not working, what really needs to happen is the human piece. And that's where I've kind of really honed in on just studying consciousness, studying the brain, the physiology, psychology, and corporate environments. And, we just came out of this revolution of knowledge. And now knowledge has exploded. It's so accessible. And yet at the same time, we're all still craving human experience because we've removed it. And through technology, through the pandemic. And so people really want that human touch. So, yeah, you can have these evergreen courses, you can have the training and what have you, but you still have to have the experience because the human will never fully cognize and like fully own the paradigm shift that we need to have
Mhm,
without being able to process that in their whole brain. So, in order to get that experience, we have to go all the way from the reptilian part of the brain, all the way up to the frontal cortex, and be
mhm,
able to create a thought pattern that reacts in a way that aligns appropriately with core values that our employees are the ones growing the company. Yes, you got to have your strategy,
mhm,
but you really have to focus on the people and believing in humanity. And that comes through awareness and different practices, especially when you get into the Vedic science
yeah.
that allow people to truly have a high awareness because then their brain is open to accepting new patterns.
Mm.
That was a big answer for your question.
That was really, really interesting. Really interesting. And I agree with you. And of course, neuroscience, Vedic science, that's not something we often hear in boardroom strategy. I've never heard about it in my corporate life. But I also want to ask, as you mentioned about the generational gaps or differences, um, in some recent articles and surveys, we're kind of seeing some positive trends in the Gen Z work ethics, because now they are the fresh, uh, piece, not piece,
Mhm.
sorry, fresh, like talent out there
Yeah.
entering into the corporate
Yeah.
world. And millennials are kind of, at the mid-level or senior level executive positions. So some of the positive trends are definitely there. And as you mentioned about, it's more about purpose over paycheck. They are
Uh-huh.
tech savvy, and one of the most striking, the highlighting one is for them, mental health is not optional. They prioritize well-being as a core part of their work. And I mean, they love fast feedback. But
Mhm.
on the other hand, there are some negative trends as well. And this has been like cited that they are not highly loyal, or they kind of go towards high job hopping. uh, Whereas most of the millennials and the previous generations, I mean, the average tenure used to be like 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years. Then there is over reliance on instant gratification. Um, then a lot of passive communication styles in there. So, what's your opinion on that? When um, the organizations might see that the negative part is kind of outweighing the positive part here, especially for the current generation workforce.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, and it's very true. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, you're seeing this.
Mhm.
It's There's a couple different pieces to it, right? There's one side of it where the world's changing
Mm.
and we have to keep up as companies and businesses, and part of that is understanding that now we do have this new technology and these new tools and new ways of doing business where we can take the mundane work and people can do it, right? And it's good to have different skills. There's different types of skills for each individual, but there are those people that they want change. They want to have creativity freedom. They want to be seen.
Mm.
And because of that, you have to give them other opportunities. You can't say, here's the widget, this is what you're working.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be fine maybe for a year at most, but then after that, they're gonna have ideas. They're gonna be looking around at other things, and they're gonna want to have an opinion, and it's how you include people in those thoughts
Mm.
and how you operate your business. A good example is, and I've had to learn this the hard way myself in my business and also in my consulting. And I do love having both because it gives me the ability to see, and it's a bigger playground, if you will. Um, but years ago, I hadn't changed my leadership style. Even though I saw it changing, I was going through this transition myself of like, how do I bridge this gap? I have people multi-generational working for me. How am I going to get this to work? And my business looks completely different now than it did before. And I really hone in on the individual. I do have people that are widget workers and they just love doing one thing. They don't want other things to change. They're very concerned about stability and they like to grow in just that small scope. And I have other people who want massive transformation all the time and they want to always grow. And so we have unique types of benefits. One is we do a consultation for our employees, and so you can get any type of consultation you want that we offer for what your skills are, where your growth potential is, what makes you happy, all these types of things, and we help in- embed that into their career. I have someone who started out with just scheduling social media posts and now she's like the project manager for all of our global offices. Right.
Oh,
Um,
crazy.
but that's where she was seen, she was
Mm.
heard.
Yeah.
So she aligned with our core values and she had so many skills that had not been used But instead of telling her where she fit, I asked her and we went through the process of her growth together. And I think we're going to see that more. I think we're going to see that we really need to nurture our employees. And when we do, yeah, we create the strategy, but we don't have to worry about how we get there. And I've seen it in a couple other companies we've implemented this into, and
Mm.
where we've, increased with the Vedic science, right? And we're bringing that into the environment, and then having these real conversations about real individuals and how we can be a community together.
Wow. That is so, so inspiring. That is really, really. And I once again, I couldn't agree more with you, because firing or just simply ignoring is the easiest way. But I guess identifying the right skills and guiding in the right way and helping identify the strengths, the skills they can contribute to the company or the team or any project as well. I think definitely it needs, a bit of polishing from the leadership side as well. So uh, in the interest of time, Jessica, if you can shortly explain, I mean, how exactly, what kind of um, difference do neuroscience and Vedic science bring into this approach, in leading or structuring organization?
It's a really good question.
Mhm.
You brought up leadership, and the reality is they're struggling too. This isn't just an employee. I mean, like I said, I had to go through my own growth in order to see this happen. A lot of what I practice is Maharishi practices. And so what we do is we first come around leaders, from usually it's the executives, the vice presidents, the CEOs, and then we work down from there depending on how the company is structured throughout everybody in the company. And
Mhm.
when we're doing this, after we get the assessment, figure out where the gaps are, a big piece of the strategy is awareness and really coming around these executives and supporting them, because
Mm.
they have a huge amount of responsibility, and at the same time, we're asking them to make this really large paradigm shift or mindset shift, right? And it's not easy. And so what we do is we introduce things like transcendental meditation. We go through a series of human taught classes,
Okay.
and workshops and cohorts where we're really teaching them a variety of awareness. And that's why the meditation is so important, because it really comes in and helps the mind make this transition open to the knowledge, open to the experience. And within that, each individual is going to end up with a slightly different path, because none of us are special, but every one of us is unique. And so each executive has to take the journey on their own, but we give them the strategy and the pathway to it. When they go through this journey, they end up learning exactly how to do all of it, and they can create the transformation themselves and their teams. Now, granted, some people hire us to do the whole company, but where I've really seen it very successful is through our peer pockets, which are these groups that come together of their peers where they
Yeah.
take this journey together, and then also train the trainer, where these executives are coming in, and at some point there's people identified in the company that become the trainers, and we teach them how to create these awareness experiences. And it's a variety. It's awareness of themselves, the way they communicate, the way they consume knowledge. And we also go into like their body types, right? And what
Mm.
body type are you? Should you be eating hot food? Maybe your problem is you're getting too much sleep, and really helping people find their own happiness, their own core values, their own boundaries, getting them built up into a high awareness, because by default, that brings confidence. It
Yeah.
brings clear communication. It brings all these beautiful pieces together that we want the work environments to have, so that we do have loyalty, longevity, we're getting those amazing ideas, high productivity, all of those things we want to be able to be profitable. And because every company wants to be profitable and they want to expand their reach. It's just like human natures. We want to grow by nature. That's what we do. And if we can't, we struggle. We just happen to be in a time in the world where that is hyper focused and very fast.
Yeah, yeah. I guess this definitely looks like actual human rewiring, and
Yes.
this is exactly what we need to unpack, because culture is not kind of a campaign or a list of checklist or workshops or training repository. It's more about daily embodiment of awareness. When we bring these practices into our daily activities, I think that's where it makes the difference.
Yeah.
Conversation by conversation, work by work. It's a ripple effect, definitely. So, before we wrap up, Jessica, if our listeners would like to connect with you for further exploration into this approach, what's the way to do that?
Very simple. You can just go to our website where you will be able to contact us, and it's blissoutmentor.com.
Great. I'll make sure to have the link and the details in the show notes for our listeners. And Jessica, thank you. Thank you so much. First of all, this is definitely a breath of truth. And this is really courageous because you are challenging the illusion that performance fixes can kind of patch purpose gaps. And this
Yeah.
definitely reminds us that future of business isn't about better productivity hacks. It's more about radical paradigm shift, radical alignment with who we are and why we lead. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. This was wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And to all of our listeners out there, if this sparked something within you today, maybe it's time to question not just what you do, but how you be in the doing. And as always, on BizBlend, we keep on saying keep blending strategy with soul. Until next time, stay bold, stay conscious, and keep tuning into our podcast. Thank you.